A very unfortunate turn of events occurred on that fateful midsummer evening. Or perhaps the dire consequence was predicated on an irrational decision, spawning even more irrationality. With all the unpredictable nuances that actually took place that evening, there was, at the least, one thing for certain: the fact that Darcy was alive when the bear began eating her. What's up, guys? Iceman here. So this story is one for the ages, as it is not only one of the most horrifying bear attacks that I've ever heard of, but it also has a very unusual turn of events, and I'm really curious what you guys have to say about them. But before I get into it, I'd like to thank you guys for all your support on this channel, and welcome to all my new subscribers. If you will, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit the bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And if you want to support me further, you can become a channel member or a patron. Links in the description below. You guys make these videos possible. So let's get into this chilling tale. A black bear is capable of biting through a live tree as thick as a human arm, and of killing an adult bull with a bite to the neck. On the rare occasion when a black bear does attack without provocation, it usually has just one goal in mind. It was a beautiful cabin on a lake, 160 miles northeast of Anchorage, Alaska. Darcy and her husband, Michael, made the decision to take a week's vacation there as a getaway from their busy lives, just the two of them, and the stillness and peacefulness of nature. There was no better a time, no better a place. The perfect intimacy with one another, the perfect love. And this getaway was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for the both of them. It was a rental, a rustic shack, nestled at the edge of the wilderness, on a still lake filled with trout and bass, fireflies, and bugs. The peaceful sounds of frogs and birds filled the atmosphere. All the more reason as to why it was such a bitter shame that terror had to strike that dreadful day. Darcy was a beautiful young woman with her whole life ahead of her. She was resourceful, a great cook, and loved and cared for her husband. The couple was enjoying time together in their rental cabin on the evening of July 8th, when the 150-pound young black bear Bruin decided to make its deadly move. Darcy and her husband Michael were both in their bathrobes, cuddling on the cabin's single, rugged couch, when they heard a sudden pop, and the screen door to their cabin slowly creaked open. Michael turned, and just beyond the kitchen counter, he saw the glowing eyes of a dark figure staring back at him. "Oh my God," he exclaimed to his wife. "It's a bear! Get out of here!" he shouted at it. The animal was unmoved by the man's attempted intimidation and began moving toward the two vulnerable humans. Instantly, the smell of dead fish and rotting flesh filled the cabin, and the two adults stood up as the bear steadily approached them, with its ears back and nose low to the ground. Terrified, Michael and Darcy scrambled out the back door of the cabin, with the bear only meters behind them. Once outside, on the porch, they slammed the flimsy door behind them and surveyed the few options they had. They could make a run for the lake or run into the woods. They both knew that bears could outrun humans, and unfortunately, their car keys were hanging up inside the cabin, where the bear was now. "Let me boost you up to the roof," Michael shouted to Darcy. He cupped his hands together to make a step, and she placed her slipper-clad foot in his hands. With some effort, he boosted her up to the low-hanging roof on the porch where they were standing. She clung to the roof edge with her hands, and he pushed her by the rump so she could pull herself up onto it. They heard a bash inside the cabin, and what seemed to be the sound of the back door from where the bear had entered getting ripped and pulled to pieces. "We gotta hurry," said Michael. He quickly stepped onto the porch railing and reached up to clench his hands around the roof edge. With all his might, he pulled himself up, barely escaping the rampant bear who had followed them out to the porch. The bear circled around the outside of the cabin, huffing and swatting the dirt with its paws, as if it were trying to showcase its dominance. Darcy and Michael clung together atop the roof, not knowing what to do next. The bear stood up on its hind paws, attempting to climb the side of the log cabin, but it seemed unable, as the logs were very smooth cut and lacked much for the bear to grip. It continued circling the cabin, while Darcy and Michael, in nothing but their bathrobes, frantically plotted their next move. "Stay here," said Michael to his shaken wife. "I'm going to head to the neighbors down the road to get help." The bear, while keeping an eye on the humans, started rummaging through the nearly empty garbage can near the front door. That's when Michael made his move. He climbed down on the other side of the cabin and made a run for the neighbor's house about a quarter mile down the dirt road. Darcy stayed atop the roof, terrified, hoping her husband would return soon. Michael managed to get the neighbor's attention, and the two got into the neighbor's truck and headed back toward the cabin with a rifle ready. As they approached, Michael saw a completely different scene than the one he'd left. There was no sign of Darcy on the roof, and no sign of the circling, menacing bear. It was quiet. It was still. Michael bolted out of the vehicle, his neighbor following close behind with his rifle in hand. Quickly, they circled the cabin, and on the other side of the small building encountered one of the most disturbing things either had ever seen. There, in broad daylight, was Michael's wife, laying still on the ground with a pool of blood beneath her, her pale face drained of color, angled toward them as if watching for their approach. Atop her was the hulking black bear, with its forepaws placed securely on her hips, with nearly its entire face submerged into her abdomen region. The bear dug a hole in her and was eating her. At the sounds of the men's gasps, the creature slowly lifted its head up, gazing back at them with its soulless eyes, looking right through the two mortified men. Michael was frozen in shock, unable to move or speak. Wordlessly, his neighbor shouldered his rifle and dropped the bear in a single shot. The bear was estimated to only weigh around 150 pounds. An investigation later determined that the animal apparently climbed a tree next to the cabin in order to gain access to the roof and had either knocked down or chased the woman from it. Jeez, what do you guys think about that situation? What concerns me the most about the whole thing is how, for whatever reason, the guy decided to leave his wife up on the roof all by herself, and he ended up running way down the road to the neighbor's house, assuming that the bear wouldn't somehow get up there and kill her. There are a few things that are concerning about that scenario, one of which is that bears are highly deterred when there are two or more people near one another making noise and acting big. Apparently, like 90+% of attacks are done against one solo person, and you vastly reduce the chance of a bear attack if you stay with your group, even if your group is only one other person, and if you look big, make noise, and things of that sort. Especially if it's against a black bear, and it's not a mother grizzly protecting its cubs or something. And not to mention, this black bear was only 150 pounds. That's like the size of the average guy. It's just really strange how the guy ended up deciding that the best course of action was to leave his wife there alone. Because of course, look what came of it. My guess is after he left, the bear realized there was only one human up there, so it thought to itself how that's quite an easy meal compared to what the situation was like 5 minutes ago when the other guy was up there as well, and he was probably bigger than her for that matter. So I'm guessing that the bear was emboldened after it realized there was only one person up there, and the smaller of the two at that. So it probably made its way up onto the roof, and maybe Darcy either jumped off it out of terror and as an only option to get away from the bear, or the bear pushed her off. I don't really know which way it went, but nonetheless, it was gonna get her if it got up on that roof. Because even if she did jump off and not injure herself, it would have chased her down, tackled her, and had her to eat. Because if it was determined enough to climb up on the roof, you could probably bet your tail if she were to get down somehow, it was definitely going to get down as fast as it could and go after her. And I'm looking it up right now, and black bears can run about 30 miles per hour, and they can run uphill, downhill, or on level ground at very similar speeds. And this one was a small black bear, so it most likely could run faster on the spectrum than not. But I mean, it could have pushed her off or something, or maybe she jumped off and she hurt her leg and she couldn't get far, and the bear quickly escorted its way down and went after her. But nonetheless, it's just terrifying to me that this happened the way that it did. But I know that when people are in these sort of situations, sometimes they make irrational decisions. I mean, I know if I did something like that, it would be eating me alive for a long time. Why the hell didn't I stay up there with the women? Why did I leave her up there on her own? I mean, I feel like it's basic knowledge that black bears can climb, and that when you're in a group, your chances of survival are more likely than if you're not in a group, even if that group is only one other person with you. So it's just, there's a lot of variables at play here that are really unsettling. But what do you think was going through the couple's mind when they made that decision, assuming Darcy was even involved in that decision? And what do you think could have been done differently to avoid this scenario? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on these matters. And of course, if we need to continue stating the obvious, I'll do it one more time. Where the hell was a source of protection? Where was the pepper spray? Where was the firearm? Where was the machete? Or a freaking Rambo knife of some sort? Where was anything they could use as protection? Why did they have to run a quarter mile down the road in order to get it? You know what I'm saying? So there's just a lot of things that are messed up about this situation, but I'm really curious what you guys have to say about it. And again, if you will, like this video, subscribe to the page, and stay tuned for more chilling tales from the Iceman.